Hi readers, welcome back to my channel. Lee here, and also welcome to my weekend books. So, I had called myself being on a book buying ban this year, but that has failed miserably. So, I'm just leaning into it now. I am going to try not to buy so many books. What the hell am I talking about? I'm just going to lean into it. Anywho, what I've got today is a couple of Barnes & Noble's visits, a couple of Amazon orders, and a Nightworms subscription packet that I get once a month. And we'll start with that. First up in my Nightworms packet was a book called The Bedmakers by Chad Lutzke and John Boden. I've not read anything by either of them. In this, after two elderly men tire of their homelessness in downtown Chicago 1979, they hop a train in search of work out west. But before their last stop, a traumatic event in an empty train car steers their once hopeful journey into a path of chaos filled with deceit, murder, grave robbing, and dormant secrets. Interesting. Nightworms is a horror subscription. Comes in monthly. It's about $58, $59. It also comes with the coffee or tea and stickers and magnets, which I love. One thing I found out about them last year, probably 4 or 5 books I pre-ordered came in one of my packages, so I ended up with 2 of them. So all in all, it's a great subscription service if you like horror. Or if you don't. Next up is All the Fiends of Hell by Nevill. I've not read any Adam Nevill, but I have several of his books. So, The Red Knight of Bells heralds global catastrophe, annihilation on a biblical scale. Oh, this is a apocalyptic book, and I love those. Across the deserted landscapes of England, bereft of infrastructure and society, the overlooked can either hide or try to outrun the infernal hunting terrors, until a rumor emerges claiming that the sea may offer an escape. Ordinary, unexceptional, directionless Carl is one of the few who made it through the first night. In the company of 2 orphans, he flees south, but only into horrifying revelations and greater peril. Yada yada yada. He must overcome alien and human malevolence and act in ways that were unthinkable mere days before. This is a novel of alien horror. Alright, next up, an Amazon pre-order. I also saw this on Sadie Hartman, aka Mother Horror's Patreon page, and I knew when I saw this that this was right up my alley. And that is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. I'm really looking forward to this. I've not read any of her other books, but this is somewhat in 2 timelines. During the Great War, a combat nurse searches for her brother, believed dead in the trenches, despite eerie signs that suggest otherwise. This is a hauntingly beautiful historical novel with a speculative twist. So this bounces back and forth between January 1918, where Laura is trying to uncover the truth about what happened to her brother, and November 1917, when Freddie awakens after an explosion to find himself trapped in an overturned pillbox with a wounded enemy soldier. So, yeah, can't wait to read that one. So this past weekend, I might have gone to Barnes & Noble twice in one day. Sometimes you just gotta treat yourself. And that's what's next. The first up, I think this is also a war novel-ish. It is King Nix by Kristen Bakis. Yep. Anna Fort wants to be a supportive wife, even if that means accompanying her husband for the winter of 1918 to a remote frozen island estate so he can finish a book as the guest of an eccentric millionaire. When she learns 3 girls are missing from a school run by their host, Anna realizes finding them is up to her, even if that means risking her husband's career and possibly her life. Ooh, yeah. This is going to be a good one. Next up, this book a lot of people are talking about. I'm trying to figure out what it's about, but when I saw it there just staring at me from the shelves, I had to pick up Piglet by Lottie Hazell. So, Piglet's got an eating disorder. And outside of the nickname, Piglet, which she can't shake, she's rather pleased with how her life's turned out. She's got lovely, loyal friends, a handsome fiancé, etc., etc. And one of the many, oh God, this is a book about food, things Kit loves about Piglet is the delicious, unfathomably elaborate meals she's always cooking. I better make sure I'm not hungry when I start this. But then, Kit confesses a horrible betrayal 2 weeks before they're set to be married, and Piglet finds herself suddenly hungry. By the day of her wedding, she's undone, but we're also ready to look beyond the lies we sometimes tell ourselves to get by. A lot of buzz about this one. I look forward to diving into it. Over the weekend, also, I read a book, and I'll do a review on it later, called The Auctioneer by Joan Sampson. It was it was mentioned and featured in Grady Hendrix's book, Paperbacks from Hell. And so Barnes & Noble has been, reissuing, whatever publisher, has been reissuing some. I've got most of them, and I think I've got all of them now because I picked up Hound by Ken Greenhall. There's never laughter in this house, only the dull sounds of age and weakness. But I am not weak. I have a strength and resourcefulness that the old woman probably never had. What are the possibilities of my strength? That is a thought I have never had before. What if some morning, as the old woman stood at the head of the staircase, she were suddenly to feel a weight thrusting against the back of her legs? What if she were to lunge forward, grasping at the air, striking her thin skull against the edge of a stair? What would become of me if she were found unmoving at the bottom of the stairway? Someone else would love me as she has loved me. I'm certain of that. People have a great interest in love. They see it everywhere. Probably even in me. I can't wait to read what Grady Hendrix says about this. Not sure when I'll get to it. I'm kind of pacing out my horror, and yeah, we'll see. Wempick, a YA novel. It was 50% off. All That's Left to Say by Emery Lord. I've never read anything by her, but this seemed intriguing. On prom night, Hannah McLaren sits in the headmaster's office in her fanciest dress, soaked to the bone. She's in huge trouble after pulling the fire alarm right as the prom queen was about to be crowned. But Hannah, whatever, I'll go both ways, had her reasons. 1 year ago, her cousin Sophie, who was also her best friend and the person she loved most in the world, died of an overdose. Drowning in grief, Hannah became obsessed with one question: who gave Sophie those pills? Who is refusing to give her family the closure they deserve? Then she concocted a plan. What could go wrong? Enroll at her cousin's fancy private school with a new look and a mouthful of lies, and finally uncover the truth. But Hannah didn't expect all the lines to blur. She didn't expect Sophie's friends to be so complicated. She didn't expect to fall for her longtime enemy. Now, she must choose to either let herself really mourn Sophie and move on, or see her search through to its explosive end, even if it means destroying herself. Anyway, that sounds like a good time. Next up is a book I had been thinking about. It is kind of dystopian fiction. It is set in 2 timelines, which y'all know I love. It is The Blueprint by Giana Rashad. I can't wait to read this one. Celine Bonet lives in Texas, where choice no longer exists. An algorithm determines a black woman's occupation, spouse, and residence. Celine takes solace in penning the biography of Henriette, an ancestor who'd been an enslaved concubine to a wealthy planter in 1800s Louisiana. But history repeats itself when Celine, lonely and naive, becomes entangled with Bastien Martin, a high-ranking government official. She finds the psychological bond unbearable, so she considers alternatives. With Henriette as her guide, she must decide whether and how to leave behind all she knows. Very intriguing. This was the second trip I made to Barnes & Noble because I saw something about this. I didn't see it in the store, so I ended up ordering it online to pick up, and I went and got it later that day. Definitely reading soon about a lot of books, but I really want to get to this one. Hopefully this month, since it's also Black History Month. So I'll put this over here separate from the rest. And speaking of Louisiana and Black History Month, my cousin posted an excerpt from this book, and I immediately had to buy it, and we'll get to why. It is called The Warmth of Other Suns, The Epic Story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson. So, here's why. There is a part in here, and let's see if I can, I'm going to just glance through the index. See if I can find it. It's the part she excerpted. Sorry. Okay, I can't find it. But part of this is set in a town that both of us lived in, Monroe, Louisiana. So, obviously, had to get it. Can't wait to read it. Although, I'm on the nonfiction side, I've got so many books I've got to read. So, I'm not sure when we'll get to that. So many books on nonfiction, and I've not been having a quick year or a good year on the nonfiction side. Anywho, speaking of nonfiction, my last two books were books that I bought for the class I'm taking through Arizona State University and the National World War II Museum, and this is about the air war in Europe. So the first book I got, Amazon order, Night Witches by Bruce Myles. The amazing story of Russian women pilots in World War II. And this I'm definitely going to reference for my class. So this has to go over here. And the other one is, on that same vein, Wings, Women in War, Soviet Airwomen in World War II Combat. This is by Reina, I don't know, Pennington. And again, I will definitely reference this book for my class because I want to try to focus on women in war as well as everything else about the world wars that I want to focus on. Anywho, that's my week in books. I don't know. I have one more that I mentioned in an earlier video that posted yesterday, I think, and that is about a woman coming home from Vietnam. She was a nurse on the Vietnam lines, but I've already got that filed away, so I'm not going to bring it back out. Anywho, I don't know that I have that many books or pre-ordered for this coming week. Hopefully, I can keep it under control and maybe just do book hauls from my own collection. Anywho, that's all for me. Have a good week and happy reading.